I should have called in sick. The thought hammered through my skull like a relentless migraine, a pounding testament to the sheer misery of my current situation. 3 steaming plates of carbonara, each threatening to spill its creamy contents, teetered precariously on my left arm. My right hand struggled to maintain its grip on a basket overflowing with breadsticks, their salty aroma doing little to soothe my frayed nerves. Lucio, usually a charming neighborhood trattoria, was a chaotic madhouse tonight. Every single table was occupied, a swirling vortex of camera-wielding tourists capturing the perfect Instagram shot of their pasta and the weary-eyed locals who, against their better judgment, had dared to venture out on a Friday. My feet ached with a dull, throbbing pain that radiated up my legs. Strands of hair, escaping the confines of my haphazard bun, tickled my neck, a constant reminder of my disheveled state. And table 7? They'd sent back their order twice already, each complaint laced with thinly veiled disdain. "Excuse me, miss?" A woman with diamond earrings that could probably cover my rent waved me down with an impatient flick of her wrist. "We've been waiting 20 minutes for our appetizer. I'll check on it right now." I lied smoothly, plastering on a smile that felt as fake as the woman's perfectly coiffed hair. I hurried past, my internal monologue a string of increasingly frantic curses. The kitchen doors swung open, releasing a wave of oppressive heat and the unmistakable sound of Chef Marco's rapid-fire Italian tirade. My Italian was rudimentary, just enough to navigate the daily grind of working at Lucio, but I understood Marco's colorful vocabulary perfectly well. Cazzo, a particularly nasty curse word, seemed to be his go-to expression tonight. I delivered the carbonara to table 12, refilled water glasses with a practiced hand, and was steeling myself to face the kitchen once more when the front door swung open. It wasn't a dramatic entrance, no crashing cymbals or spotlight illuminating the newcomers, but the entire restaurant seemed to subtly shift on its axis. The ambient noise, a cacophony of chatter and clanging silverware, dropped half an octave. Every server, myself included, seemed to instinctively straighten their spine, as if pulled by an invisible string. Even the couple locked in a heated argument near the window went silent, their animosity momentarily forgotten. 3 men walked in, each radiating an aura of wealth and power that made my threadbare apron feel even more pathetic. They wore suits that likely cost more than my annual salary, tailored to perfection and exuding an air of understated elegance. But it was the man in the center who stole my breath, the one who commanded the room with an effortless grace that bordered on arrogance. Tall, with hair the color of midnight swept back with careless precision, revealing a strong forehead and piercing gaze. His face was a masterpiece of sharp angles and subtle shadows, a sculpture carved from the finest marble, a sharp jawline, full lips pressed into a thin, uncompromising line that suggested he'd forgotten the simple pleasure of smiling years ago. His eyes, the color of rich espresso, swept the room with a predatory intensity, as if he were cataloging every exit, every potential threat, every hidden weakness. Power radiated off him like palpable heat, a tangible force that pressed against my skin. "Madonna Santa?" whispered Sophia, the hostess, her voice barely audible as she crossed herself with a hurried, almost superstitious gesture. "Who is that?" I breathed, my voice a mere whisper. She shot me a look that could curdle milk, as if I'd just asked who the Pope was. "Dante Vieira. Don't stare." I looked away immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs for reasons I couldn't quite articulate. Dante Vieira. Even I'd heard the whispers, the hushed tones, the furtive glances that accompanied the mere mention of his name. It was the kind of name people said quietly, glancing over their shoulders, a name synonymous with danger and untold wealth. The kind of man you didn't cross unless you had a death wish. Sophia, composed once more, led them to the private section in the back, the dimly lit area we reserved for special guests. Translation: people we didn't ask questions about. I busied myself clearing table 4, the clatter of plates a poor attempt to mask the tremor in my hands. This wasn't my section. I had no reason to go back there, no reason to get closer to the man who had momentarily silenced the entire restaurant. except Marco appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face red with a simmering rage. "Arya, get back there. Antonio just quit." My stomach plummeted. "What?" "Walked out the back door. You're covering his tables." "But I don't." "I don't care, Arya. Just do it." I grabbed my notepad, smoothed down my apron, and walked toward the private section on legs that felt like water. The three men were ensconced in a curved leather booth beneath a painting of a bucolic Tuscan countryside, a stark contrast to the palpable tension that filled the air. Low lighting cast long shadows, highlighting the expensive white tablecloth and the crystal glasses already filled with what looked like very, very expensive scotch. Dante sat in the middle, leaning back with the casual confidence of a king holding court. The men on either side looked like hardened criminals, faces etched with scars and eyes that held no warmth, but they were merely planets orbiting a powerful sun. I approached the table, pen poised, forcing a professional smile onto my face. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with—" "You're late." Dante's voice was low, dark, and possessed a gravelly quality that sent a shiver down my spine, cut through my words like a honed blade. I blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. "I'm sorry. We've been sitting here for 3 minutes." His eyes lifted to meet mine, and the full force of his attention hit me like a physical blow. It was an assessment, a challenge, a silent declaration of power. "Is service always this slow? Or are we not worth your time?" Heat flooded my cheeks, a burning wave of embarrassment and defiance. "I apologize, sir. Your server just—" "I don't care about excuses." He leaned forward slightly, and suddenly the air between us felt charged with an invisible current. "I care about competence." One of the men beside him, stocky with a jagged scar slicing through his eyebrow, smirked into his scotch. "Someone's got a fire in her." Something hot and reckless flared in my chest, a defiance I couldn't suppress. I should have nodded, apologized again, taken their order, and disappeared into the relative safety of the kitchen. Instead, I heard myself say, my Italian surprisingly clear and concise, "Maybe if you treated people like human beings instead of servants, you'd get better service." The private section went dead silent, the shift almost palpable. The smirking man stopped mid-sip, his eyes widening in surprise. The other guard's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward his jacket, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. Sophia, hovering near the entrance, went white as a sheet, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. But it was Dante who truly froze. His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my pulse hammer in my throat. A silent battle of wills. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved, no one breathed. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It wasn't warm, it wasn't kind, it wasn't reassuring in any way. It was the smile of a wolf spotting something unexpected in the henhouse, something that might actually be interesting before he tore it apart. "You speak Italian," he said softly, his voice laced with a dangerous undertone. "My mother was from Naples." I don't know where the steadiness in my voice came from, because my knees were shaking so violently I thought they might give out. "And you think I'm rude?" "I think you're used to people being afraid of you." The scarred man made a sound like a strangled laugh. The other guard looked like he might draw a weapon. Dante's smile widened a fraction, revealing a glimpse of sharp teeth. "What's your name?" "Arya. Arya." He said it slowly, deliberately, tasting each syllable as if it were a rare and exquisite wine. "Do you know who I am?" "I know enough." "Then you know," he murmured, leaning back again, his eyes never leaving mine, "that people who speak to me that way usually regret it." My heart was trying to punch through my ribs, a frantic drummer trapped in a cage. But I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze head-on. "Are you going to order? Or should I come back when you've decided?" For a moment, I thought I'd gone too far. His expression shifted, a flicker of something dark and calculating moving behind those espresso eyes. Then he gestured lazily to the menu, dismissing me with a subtle flick of his wrist. "Surprise me, Arya from Naples. Bring me something worth my time." It was a dismissal, a test, a threat, and a challenge all wrapped in a velvet glove. I nodded once, turned on my heel, and walked back toward the kitchen, feeling his gaze burn into my spine with every step. When I pushed through the kitchen doors, my hands were shaking so badly, I had to grip the cold metal counter for support. Sophia burst in seconds later, her eyes wide and frantic. "Are you insane? Do you have any idea what you just—" "I know," I whispered, but the truth was I didn't. I didn't know what I'd just done. Didn't know why my heart was racing or why my skin felt electrified. All I knew was that Dante Vieira's eyes had seen straight through me, and somehow, impossibly, I wanted him to look again. I made him osso buco. It was the best thing on our menu, the one dish Marco actually took pride in, the one that required skill and patience. Braised veal shanks simmered in white wine and gremolata, served over saffron risotto that demanded 40 minutes of constant, meticulous stirring. It was a labor of love, a testament to culinary artistry. I delivered it myself, setting the plate in front of Dante with hands that had finally, miraculously, stopped trembling. He looked at the dish, his expression unreadable, then his gaze flickered to me. "Brave choice," he said, his voice low and resonant. "It's our specialty. I meant speaking to me the way you did. Most people don't get a second chance. Then I'm lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it." He picked up his fork, cut through the tender meat, and chewed slowly, deliberately. Something flickered in his expression, a brief moment of vulnerability that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Approval, maybe, or surprise. "This is excellent. I'll tell the chef." "Tell him yourself. I'm buying the restaurant." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. A cold, shocking realization that shattered my carefully constructed reality. What? This location, the building, all of it. He gestured vaguely with his fork, dismissing the immense financial transaction with a casual wave of his hand. "The owner owes me money. Considerable money. By next week, Tivera Lucio will be under new management." My stomach twisted, a knot of anxiety tightening with each passing second. "You're shutting us down." "I'm restructuring. The staff who matter will stay." His eyes found mine again, dark and unreadable. "You speak Italian. You have fire. That's rare." "I'm just a waitress." "No." He set down his fork with deliberate precision, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. "You're something more interesting than that." The way he said it made heat crawl up my neck, a tingling sensation that was both unsettling and undeniably alluring. Luca, the scarred man, I'd heard Dante call him, leaned over and whispered something I couldn't hear. Dante's expression didn't change, but he nodded once, a subtle acknowledgement. "We're leaving," he announced, standing in one fluid motion, his movements radiating an effortless power. I stepped back automatically as all three men rose. Dante pulled out a money clip thick with $100 bills and dropped 5 of them on the table without counting. "Keep the change," he said, his voice dismissive. It was easily 3 times what the meal cost, a blatant display of wealth and disregard for common courtesy. He started to walk past me, then paused, turning back with a slow, deliberate movement. He stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, a complex blend of cedar and smoke and something darker, more dangerous. "You'll hear from me, Arya." It wasn't a question. It was a promise, a veiled threat, an unspoken challenge. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night. The restaurant exhaled in his wake, releasing the breath it had been holding captive. 3 days later, Marco called a staff meeting. We gathered in the empty dining room, 12 of us in total, nervous and whispering, exchanging worried glances. Marco looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 72 hours, his face etched with deep lines of anxiety. "Tivera Lucio has been sold," he announced flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "New ownership takes over next week. Most of you will keep your positions." He consulted a piece of paper with shaking hands, his gaze darting nervously around the room. "Some of you will be offered different opportunities." "What kind of opportunities?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling slightly. Marco's eyes found mine across the room, his gaze filled with a mixture of pity and resignation. "Arya, you're being transferred. My blood went cold, a sudden chill that gripped my entire body. Transferred where? Private service. High-profile clients. He wouldn't meet my gaze, his eyes shifting to the floor. It's a significant pay increase. I didn't agree to. You don't have a choice. His voice cracked slightly, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. None of us do. I tried to refuse. I went to the new management office, a sleek, soulless building downtown with black marble floors and security guards who looked like they could break me in half with a single glance. I demanded to speak to someone in charge, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. They sent me to the 15th floor, a sterile, minimalist space that felt more like a fortress than an office. The woman behind the desk was elegant, impeccably dressed, and utterly unsympathetic. Her eyes, as cold and hard as diamonds, assessed me with a detached disdain. Miss Key, your new position comes with a substantial salary increase, full benefits, and housing assistance if needed. Most people would be grateful. I didn't ask for this. Mr. Vieira specifically requested you. There it was, the truth I'd been dreading, the confirmation of my worst fears. This was all his doing, a carefully orchestrated manipulation designed to pull me into his orbit. This is insane, I whispered, my voice barely audible. He can't just. He can. Her smile was sharp as glass, a warning not to cross the line. And he did. You start Monday at his private residence. 6 p.m. The address and details are in this envelope. She slid a black folder across the desk, her movements precise and efficient. Don't be late, Miss Key. Mr. Vieira values punctuality. I didn't sleep that weekend, tossing and turning in my small, cramped apartment, my mind a whirlwind of anxiety and apprehension. I researched everything I could find about Dante Vieira, which wasn't much. A few society page photos from charity events, his face a mask of carefully controlled indifference. Vague mentions in business articles about import-export, strategic investments, and international holdings. Nothing concrete, nothing revealing, nothing that explained why a man like him would upend my entire life over a single, ill-advised conversation. Monday arrived far too quickly, dragging me into its inevitable embrace. The address led me to a gated estate nestled in the hills overlooking the city, a sprawling oasis of wealth and privilege that felt a million miles away from my humble existence. I showed my ID to security, a gruff man with a suspicious gaze, and the iron gates swung open like the jaws of a predator, inviting me into its lair. The driveway wound through manicured gardens, a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and exotic scents that did little to calm my racing pulse. The house? No, mansion was all clean lines and glass, modern and cold and breathtaking in its stark, minimalist beauty. It was a masterpiece of architectural design, a testament to wealth and power, but it lacked warmth, it lacked soul. A woman in a black dress, her posture as rigid and unyielding as the marble floors, met me at the entrance, her face devoid of any emotion. Miss Key, I'm Elena, Mr. Vieira's head of household. Follow me. She led me through rooms that looked like they belonged in architectural magazines, vast expanses of marble, soaring ceilings, art I recognized from museum catalogs, each piece undoubtedly worth more than my entire life savings. The silence was deafening, broken only by the echo of our footsteps on the polished floors. We stopped in a formal dining room where a single-place setting waited at the head of a table that could seat 20. The sheer extravagance of it was almost obscene. Mr. Vieira will join you shortly, Elena said, her voice as crisp and polished as the silverware. Please wait here. Then she left, her heels clicking away into the oppressive silence, leaving me alone in a room that felt more like a museum than a place of comfort. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, surrounded by wealth I couldn't even begin to comprehend, feeling like a trespasser in a world I didn't belong to. When Dante finally entered, he had traded his perfectly tailored suit jacket for a crisp white shirt. The sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms and a hint of dark hair. Somehow it made him more dangerous, less polished, more real. Arya. He said my name like a secret, a private indulgence that sent a shiver down my spine. You came. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. He moved to the table with a predatory grace, his movements fluid and controlled. He poured 2 glasses of wine from a bottle that probably cost more than my car, the rich ruby liquid swirling in the crystal. You could have run, disappeared. People do it all the time. And you would have found me. And I would have found you. He handed me a glass, his fingers brushing mine deliberately, sending a spark of electricity through my veins. But I prefer when people come willingly. Why am I here? Because I want you here. His eyes held mine, dark and consuming, trapping me in their magnetic pull. Because when you looked at me in that restaurant, you saw a man. Not a monster, not a king, just a man. I saw someone being cruel to a waitress. Exactly. His smile was slow, devastating. A glimpse of the wolf beneath the carefully constructed facade. No one has challenged me in years, Arya. No one has dared. I find I've missed it. So this is what? Entertainment? This, he said softly, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, is the beginning of something neither of us can walk away from. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with promise and threat. A dangerous equation that I couldn't solve. And God help me, I believed him. Your job is simple, Elena explained the next morning, leading me through the mansion's east wing, a labyrinth of corridors and hidden doors. You'll attend private dinners, corporate events, occasionally travel for important meetings. You'll serve, observe, and speak when spoken to. So I'm a waitress with better pay. You're much more than that. She stopped in front of a door, pulling a key from her pocket, her expression hardening. You're entering Mr. Vieir's inner circle. Very few people get that close. Lucky me. Elena's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing with a warning glint. You have no idea what you're walking into, Miss Key. My advice. Learn the rules quickly, keep your head down, and never, ever forget who you're working for. She opened the door to reveal a bedroom that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel, a haven of opulence and comfort. King-sized bed draped in silk, a private bathroom with a jacuzzi tub, a window overlooking the perfectly manicured gardens. This is yours, she said, her voice devoid of warmth. You'll live here during work weeks. Weekends are your own, unless Mr. Vieir requires otherwise. He expects me to live here. He expects loyalty, discretion, and availability. Elena handed me the key, her touch fleeting and impersonal. Dinner is at 8. Wear something appropriate. There will be guests. She left before I could argue, her footsteps fading into the silence. The closet held clothes I definitely hadn't packed, an array of elegant dresses in my exact size, shoes that looked expensive enough to require insurance, and accessories that sparkled with understated elegance. A note lay on top, written in a simple, elegant script. Dress code for tonight. Black. D. I wanted to burn every piece of it, to reject this new identity he was trying to force upon me. Instead, I chose a simple black dress that didn't make me feel like I was playing costume. A garment that allowed me to retain a shred of my own identity. I kept my makeup minimal, my hair pulled back into a simple bun. If I was being forced into this role, I'd do it on my own terms, with a quiet defiance that he might not even notice. At exactly 8 p.m. I descended the curved staircase to find the dining room transformed. Candlelight flickered, casting dancing shadows across the walls, illuminating the crystal glasses and the impeccably set table. Dante stood near the window in a black suit, talking quietly on his phone, his posture radiating an effortless power. When he saw me, his head snapped up, his eyes narrowed, and he ended the call immediately, slipping the phone into his pocket. Arya. His gaze traveled over me slowly, thoroughly, an intense assessment that made my skin prickle with awareness. Perfect. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here because you left me no choice. And yet, you're here. He crossed to me with a deliberate stride, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. That's what matters. Who are these guests? Business associates. Dangerous people who need to believe I'm in complete control. His hand lifted, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat as his fingers brushed a strand of hair from my face. His touch both intimate and intimidating. Which means you need to appear as mine. I'm not yours. Tonight you are. His thumb traced my jawline, sending a jolt of electricity down my spine. A silent claim of ownership. They'll test you, push boundaries, try to read weakness. You'll smile, you'll serve, and you'll reveal nothing. Understand? I wanted to pull away, slap his hand, run screaming from the room. Instead, I held his gaze, refusing to be intimidated, and nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of the terms of this dangerous game. His smile was approving, possessive, a dangerous glint in his dark eyes. Good girl. The guests arrived in expensive cars and dangerous smiles, their presence filling the room with a palpable tension. There was Matteo Rossi, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, who watched me like a hawk studying its prey, his gaze both predatory and assessing. His wife, Giovanna, dripped in diamonds and boredom, her eyes flitting around the room with a detached disdain. A younger man named Enzo, whose gaze lingered a little too long on my legs, his eyes filled with a blatant disrespect, and two others whose names I didn't catch, all radiating the same predatory energy. I served wine, brought out courses Elena had prepared with meticulous precision, stayed quiet, but I listened, absorbing the undercurrents of the conversation. The shipment from Marseilles is delayed, Matteo said, cutting into his steak with unnecessary force. Your contact there is becoming unreliable, Dante. It's handled. Is it? Because last time you said that we lost $500,000 in product. Dante's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. A palpable shift in the atmosphere. Careful, Matteo. You're a guest in my home, and you're asking me to trust you with my money. I'm telling you it's handled. Dante's voice was soft, lethal, a low rumble that sent a shiver down my spine. Unless you'd like to manage the French routes yourself. Matteo backed down immediately, returning to his meal with a forced smile, his earlier bravado vanishing like smoke. I refilled glasses, a silent observer, invisible and essential all at once, navigating the treacherous waters of their unspoken power plays. This one's pretty? Enzo said suddenly, gesturing at me with his fork, his eyes filled with a disrespectful leer. Where'd you find her? She found me. Dante's eyes flickered to mine briefly, a possessive glint in their depths. And she's off limits. Possessive, Dante, Giovanna purred, her voice dripping with amusement. How unlike you. Protective. He corrected, his voice firm and unwavering. There's a difference. The dinner continued, a dangerous dance of veiled threats and subtle power plays, dangerous words wrapped in polite conversation. Business I wasn't supposed to understand, threats disguised as compliments, alliances forged and broken in the space of a single sentence. When I brought out dessert, Enzo grabbed my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong. What's your name, Bella? Let go, I said quietly, my voice barely a whisper. Make me. Before I could react, Dante was standing, his chair scraping back with sudden violence, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. Remove your hand, he said, his voice like winter, his eyes burning with a cold, controlled fury. Or I'll remove it for you. Enzo released me immediately, laughing nervously, trying to mask his fear with bravado. Jesus, Dante, I was just joking. No need to get so territorial. You were disrespecting what's mine. Dante moved around the table with predatory grace, positioning himself between us, his presence a shield against further intrusion. Arya, go to the kitchen. I left before the situation could escalate, my heart pounding in my chest. Through the door, I heard Dante's voice, low, controlled, absolutely terrifying. A promise of retribution that sent a shiver down my spine. Then silence, then polite conversation resuming as if nothing had happened. When Elena found me 20 minutes later, she looked pale, her composure shaken. Mr. Vieira wants you. His study. Now, the study was all dark wood and leather, the walls lined with books that actually looked red, their spines worn and faded. A heavy scent of old paper and expensive cologne filled the air. Dante stood by the fireplace, tie loosened, shirt untucked, a glass of whiskey swirling in his hand. Even from behind, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the coiled energy of a predator ready to strike. "I'm sorry," I said immediately, my voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to cause." "You didn't cause anything." He turned, his gaze softening slightly, a flicker of concern in his dark eyes. He crossed to me in 3 long strides, his presence filling the small space. "Enzo is a fool who forgot his place. That's not your fault. Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." His hand cupped my chin, tilting my face up, his touch surprisingly gentle. "Are you all right?" The genuine concern in his eyes stunned me, a crack in his carefully constructed facade. "I'm fine. You shouldn't have to deal with men like that," he said, his voice rough with a suppressed anger. "That's why I had Elena take you away," says the man who forced me into this. His thumb brushed my lower lip, a feather-light touch that sent a shiver down my spine, and my breath caught in my throat. "I'm starting to regret that decision." "Why?" "Because," he murmured, his face so close I could feel his breath on my skin. "You're making this complicated. You were supposed to be staff, invisible, safe. And now I can't stop thinking about you." His confession was rough, unwilling, a glimpse into the turmoil beneath the surface. "About that fire in your eyes when you challenged me, about what it would feel like to—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening, his expression a mixture of desire and frustration. "To what?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Instead of answering, he released me, stepping back as if I'd burned him, creating a space between us that felt vast and empty. "Go to bed, Arya, before I do something we'll both regret." I should have left immediately, turned and fled back to the relative safety of my room. But I stood there for 3 heartbeats, frozen in place, feeling the tension crackling between us like a live wire, a dangerous current that threatened to overwhelm me. What if I wouldn't regret it? I heard myself say, the words a reckless whisper, a challenge thrown into the darkness. His eyes went dark, dangerous, a storm gathering behind their impenetrable surface. "You don't know what you're saying, Arya." "Don't I?" "Arya." My name was a warning, a plea, a desperate attempt to regain control. I left then, heart pounding, knowing everything had just shifted, knowing there was no going back to invisible, knowing that I had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I didn't see Dante for 3 days. Elena said he was handling business, traveling, too occupied for meals or meetings. I told myself I was relieved, that I needed the distance, the time to process the events of that night. I was lying. The mansion felt different without him. Emptier, colder, safer, and unbearably boring. I served lunches to his various associates, learned the names of men who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes, and discovered that Luca, the scarred guard, actually had a dry sense of humor when Dante wasn't around, a hidden warmth beneath his hardened exterior. "You're still here," he commented one afternoon, finding me in the garden, wandering aimlessly through the rows of meticulously pruned roses. "Where else would I be? Most people run." He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the air, offering me one. I declined. First week in Dante's world, they realize what they've gotten into and disappear. And then what? He shrugged, exhaling smoke toward the sky, his expression unreadable. He finds them. Sometimes he lets them go. Depends on whether they've seen too much. "Have I seen too much?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, the question hanging in the air between us. He looked at me, his eyes filled with something almost like sympathy. "You've seen things you can't unsee." The moment he looked at you. Dante returned on Thursday night, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the mansion. I was reading in my room when I heard his voice echoing through the hallways. Sharp, angry, speaking rapid Italian to someone on the phone, his words laced with fury. Doors slammed, footsteps pounded past my door, then silence. I should have stayed in bed, ignored the commotion, and pretended that I hadn't heard anything. Instead, I found myself walking toward his study, drawn by some instinct I couldn't name, a pull that defied logic and reason. The door was half open, a sliver of light spilling into the darkened hallway. Inside, Dante stood by the window, jacket discarded, shirt untucked, a glass of whiskey clutched in his hand. Even from behind, I could see the tension in his shoulders, the weight of the world pressing down on him. I knocked softly, my knuckles rapping against the heavy wood. "Are you all right?" He turned, and the look on his face stopped me cold, raw, exhausted, almost vulnerable. The carefully constructed mask had slipped, revealing the man beneath the surface, a man burdened by pain and betrayal. "You should be in bed," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. I heard shouting, "Business, nothing that concerns you." But his voice lacked its usual command, the steely authority that brooked no argument. He sounded tired, defeated. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, shutting out the rest of the world. "When's the last time you slept? Why do you care?" "Because you look like hell." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, a fleeting expression of amusement that quickly vanished. "Honest as always. It's one of my flaws." I moved closer, cautious, drawn to him by an irresistible force, a need to offer comfort, a desire to ease his pain. "What happened?" For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer, that he would retreat behind his impenetrable walls and shut me out. Then he drank the rest of his whiskey in one swallow, the amber liquid disappearing in a single gulp, and said, "Someone I trusted betrayed me, sold information to the Calabrese family. 3 of my men are dead because of it." The words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the violence and danger that lurked beneath the surface of his world. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice filled with genuine sympathy. "Don't be. Mercy is a luxury I can't afford." He set down the glass on the table with a sharp click, the sound echoing in the silence. "This world, my world, it consumes everything. Loyalty, trust, love. It takes and takes until there's nothing left but survival. Is that why you're alone?" His eyes snapped to mine, his expression hardening, a warning flash of the darkness within. "Dangerous question. Is it true? I'm not alone. I have soldiers, business partners, allies." He paused, his gaze softening slightly, a flicker of something akin to vulnerability in his eyes. "But no one who knows you, no one can know me. Knowing me means becoming a target. Everyone I've ever cared about has either died or betrayed me, so I stopped caring." "That sounds lonely." "That sounds smart." We were inches apart now, the air crackling with an unspoken tension, his voice dropping to something almost intimate, a whisper in the darkness. "So why are you still here, Arya? Standing in my study at midnight, looking at me like you want to fix something that's been broken for years?" "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely audible, the truth spilling out before I could stop it. "Then let me tell you what I know." His hand came up, his fingers tracing the curve of my neck, sending shivers down my spine, his touch both possessive and gentle. "I know you should walk out that door. I know I should let you, and I know that neither of us is going to." My pulse hammered under his touch, a frantic rhythm that echoed the turmoil within me. "Dante," I whispered, my voice barely audible, my eyes locked on his. "You feel it too. Not a question. A certainty. This thing between us, dangerous, inevitable, a force that defied logic and reason. You said I was supposed to be invisible. You were." His other hand found my waist, pulling me against him, his body hard and unyielding against mine, the contact sending a surge of heat through my veins. "But you opened your mouth and spoke Italian and looked at me like I was human. And now I can't stop seeing you. This is insane." "I know." His forehead touched mine, his breath warm against my lips, his eyes filled with a mixture of desire and desperation. "I know every reason this is wrong. I know the danger, the complications, how it ends badly for everyone. So why?" "Because for the first time in 10 years, he interrupted, his voice rough with something I'd never heard from him before. Something that sounded like honesty, maybe. 10,000 unspoken words, compressed into a single touch. His hands tangled themselves in my hair, pulling me closer as his body pressed against mine. A barely restrained inferno of intensity. God help me, I thought as I surrendered, kissing him back with a desperate fervor. It was a kiss born of starvation, of longing, and in that moment he was air, the very essence of life I'd been deprived of. Every second since our eyes first met had been a silent, inexorable march toward this precipice. Danger ceased to exist. Consequences evaporated into the ether. We were just two souls, raw and exposed, desperately clawing for connection in a world that sought to tear us apart. When the kiss finally broke, our breaths ragged and stolen, the harsh sting of reality crashed down upon us. This changes everything, I whispered, the words of fragile tremor in the sudden silence. I know your world will try to destroy you because of me. His thumb, calloused and sure, traced the outline of my swollen lips, a gentle contrast to the storm raging within me. I should send you away, he rumbled, his voice a low, dangerous melody. Give you money, set you up somewhere safe, where my enemies could never find you. But you won't go, will you? It wasn't a question. His smile was a shadow, dark and possessive, tinged with a haunting sadness that mirrored my own broken spirit. I'm too selfish for that, he confessed, the words like shards of glass. Too broken to do the right thing. A desperate hope flickered within me, fragile as a newborn flame. What if I don't want to leave? His eyes darkened, assessing me with a chilling intensity. Then you're more dangerous than I thought. He kissed me again, softer this time, a reverence in the touch of his lips that belied the darkness within him. Stay with me tonight, he breathed against my skin. Not as staff, not as an obligation, just stay. Every fiber of my being screamed no. I should have remembered the warnings, the red flags, the countless reasons this man was wrong for me. But reason had long since abandoned me, drowned in the torrent of emotion he evoked. Instead, I let him lead me, a willing captive, to his bedroom. Let him peel back the layers of the monster and show me the man beneath. Let myself believe, just for one stolen night, that love could bloom even in the deepest darkness. We fell asleep tangled together, his heartbeat a steady drum against my ear, a fragile promise of safety in a world consumed by chaos. When I woke at dawn, the sheets still carrying his scent, Dante was already gone. But he'd left a note on his pillow, the words etched in sharp, elegant script that hinted at the turmoil within him. Asterisk, you're not safe here, but I'm too selfish to let you go. Forgive me. Beneath it, a name I didn't recognize. Marco Calabrese. The man who wanted Dante dead. The man whose family would now target me, simply because I'd slept in the wrong bed. Elena found me staring at the note 20 minutes later, the paper trembling in my hand. Get dressed, she said, her usual iron composure cracking around the edges, revealing a flicker of something akin to fear. Now, what's happening? Dante's calling an emergency meeting. All inner circle. That includes you now, apparently. The way she spat the last word made my stomach twist, a knot of guilt and apprehension tightening with each passing second. Because of last night. Because you were seen entering his private quarters. Because you didn't leave until morning. Because in this world, Miss Key, nothing is private. She crossed her arms, her gaze sharp and unforgiving. There are already rumors, questions, vulnerabilities. Dante's enemies will exploit this. I didn't mean to. Intentions don't matter, only consequences. She gestured sharply at the closet, her eyes demanding obedience. 5 minutes. Wear something that says you belong here. The meeting took place in a room I'd never seen before, a hidden chamber beneath the mansion, accessible only by an elevator that demanded fingerprint access. Windowless, soundproof, the kind of place where terrible decisions were made and lives were bartered like commodities. 10 men sat around a steel table, the air thick with tension. Dante was at the head, his face an impassive mask. Luca was to his right, his presence a silent reassurance. There were faces I'd served dinner to, men whose names I didn't know, their gazes hard and assessing. All of them turned as I entered, their eyes tracking my every move. Dante's expression gave nothing away. Sit. There was one empty chair, placed directly to his left, an undeniable declaration. Every eye followed me as I crossed the room, the silence a suffocating weight. Gentlemen, Dante began, his voice a low, resonant command once I was seated. This is Arya Key. As of last night, she's under my personal protection. Anyone who touches her, threatens her, or even looks at her wrong, answers directly to me. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with unspoken calculations. Matteo Rossi, a man with eyes like chips of flint, leaned forward, his voice laced with thinly veiled contempt. With respect, Dante, taking a woman into your bed is one thing. Bringing her into our business is another matter entirely. I'm not asking permission. You're creating a liability. Matteo's eyes flicked to me, the disdain barely concealed. The Calabrese family has already sent word. They know about her. They're calling her your weakness. Let them. Dante's voice could have cut glass. The words a chilling promise. They'll learn the difference between weakness and motivation. Marco Calabrese isn't bluffing. Another man said, older, his face etched with the scars of countless battles, a thick, jagged line bisecting his throat. He's been waiting for an opening. Now you've given him one. Then he'll die waiting. Dante's hand moved to rest on the table, close enough to mine that I could feel the faint hum of his energy, a dangerous undercurrent of power barely contained. Arya stays. This isn't a debate. It's suicide. Matteo snapped, his face flushed with anger. You're thinking with your, finish that sentence. Dante interrupted softly, the threat a palpable presence in the air, and see what happens. Finally, Luca spoke up, breaking the suffocating tension. What's the plan, boss? We move on Marco first. He wants a war? We'll give him one he can't win. Dante's gaze swept the table, his eyes piercing and unwavering. Double security on all shipments. Relocate the Eastern operations. And find out who's feeding him information. What about her? Matteo gestured at me as if I were an inanimate object, not a person sitting right there. She stays close. If anyone gets through my security to reach her, it means we have bigger problems than one woman. She's not trained, not prepared for. Then we prepare her. Dante finally looked at me, something fierce and protective burning in his eyes, a stark contrast to the impassive mask he usually wore. Arya, can you shoot? My mouth went dry. A gun? No, a camera. Yes, a gun. I've never. You will. Starting today. He turned back to the others, his decision final. Luca will handle her training. Basic self-defense. Weapons. How to recognize threats. Dante, I can't. I started, my voice barely a whisper. You can, and you will. His hand finally covered mine, warm and certain. A silent promise of protection. Because I won't lose you to my enemy's games. The training started that afternoon in a private shooting range beneath the mansion, a sterile, echoing space filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. Hold it steady, Luca instructed, his voice calm and patient, adjusting my grip on the Glock 19. Breathe. Squeeze. Don't pull. The first shot went wide, ricocheting off the metal target with a deafening clang. The second barely clipped the edge. By the 10th attempt, my ears were ringing despite the protection, and my arms ached with exhaustion. Why are you doing this? I asked during a break, setting down the gun with shaking hands, the weight of it a heavy burden in my palm. Doing what? Helping me. You could have refused. Luca lit a cigarette, his eyes considering me through a haze of smoke. You make him human again. That's worth something. I also make him vulnerable. Same thing, Piccolola. He exhaled a plume of smoke, the scent bitter and familiar. Dante's been a ghost for years. Efficient, ruthless, empty. Then you walk into his restaurant and talk back. And suddenly he's making decisions with his heart instead of his head. It's dangerous. It's stupid. He smiled slightly, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. It's also the most alive I've seen him. His associates don't agree. Matteo's old guard. believes emotion is weakness. Luca's expression hardened, his gaze hardening. But Dante's built an empire on control and fear. Maybe it's time he built something on passion instead. And if that gets me killed, then at least you'll have lived. He stubbed out his cigarette again, his voice brooking no argument. 20 more rounds. Your life might depend on them. That night, I found Dante on his bedroom balcony, overlooking the city lights that stretched out like a glittering tapestry. You should be resting, he said without turning, his voice low and strained. So should you. I don't rest. I strategize. But he held out his hand, and I took it, letting him pull me against his chest, the warmth of his body a welcome comfort. Luca says you're a terrible shot. Encouraging. He also says you're determined. That's more important. His lips brushed my temple, a fleeting moment of tenderness. I'm sorry, Arya, for dragging you into this, for making you a target. You gave me a choice between servitude and danger. Not exactly fair options. Maybe I chose you. I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes, searching for the man beneath the carefully constructed facade. Did you consider that? His expression softened, a rare and precious glimpse of vulnerability. You don't know enough about me to choose anything. So tell me, who is Dante Vieira when he's not terrifying business associates or planning wars? For a long moment, he just looked at me, his eyes filled with a depth of pain I couldn't comprehend. Then, finally, he spoke, the words raw and honest. A man who watched his father beaten to death when he was 15. Who built an empire from blood because mercy got his family killed. Who learned that love is leverage. So he buried that weakness until it calcified into armor. That's the past. Who are you now? Someone who hasn't figured that out yet. His hand cupped my face, his touch gentle. But when I'm with you, I remember what it felt like to be more than survival. Is that enough? It has to be. He kissed me then. Slow, deep, full of unspoken promises. Because I won't let you go, Arya. Even if it destroys us both. I kissed him back, tasting whiskey and danger and something that felt terrifyingly close to love. We didn't make it back inside for hours, lost in a world of our own making. A fragile sanctuary built on desperation and desire. The next morning, I woke to find Dante already dressed, phone pressed to his ear, his voice sharp with controlled fury, the Italian words rapid and unintelligible. When he saw I was awake, he ended the call abruptly, his face a mask of grim determination. What's wrong? I asked, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. Marco Calabrese just made his opening move. His jaw tightened, the muscles bunching beneath his skin. He took one of my warehouses last night, killed 5 men, left a message. What message? He handed me his phone, his hand trembling slightly. On the screen was a photo, my face circled in red, a digital bullseye, with words scrolled beneath in Italian. A venomous threat disguised as a promise. Asterisk la tua debolezza. La tua rovina. Your weakness, your downfall. The war had begun, and I was the weapon they'd used to break him. You're leaving the city, Dante said, his voice leaving no room for argument, the words as cold and hard as steel. Tonight, Luca's taking you to a safe house in the mountains. No. We were in his study, the opulent surroundings a stark contrast to the brutality of the moment. Me still in yesterday's clothes, rumpled and stained with the remnants of passion. Him pacing like a caged animal, his energy a volatile mix of anger and fear. The photo was still open on his phone between us, a silent promise of violence. This isn't a negotiation, Arya. You're right. It's not. I stood facing him across the desk, my voice unwavering, because I'm not running. They'll kill you to hurt me, then protect me here. You have an army, security, resources. Which means nothing if Marco decides suicide bombing is acceptable. His fist slammed on the desk, the force of the impact making me jump. You don't understand what he's capable of. So explain it to me. He carved his own brother's eyes out for stealing from him. Dante said flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. Burned down a church because the priest spoke against his family. He doesn't have limits. He doesn't have conscience. And now he's decided you're my pressure point. Then we prove him wrong. How? By me not being your weakness. I moved around the desk, closing the distance between us, close enough to touch him, to feel the heat radiating from his body. If I run, he wins. He proves you'll break protocol for a woman. But if I stay, if I learn to protect myself, if I become part of your world instead of just a vulnerability. You're asking me to put you in danger. I'm asking you to trust me. My hand found his chest, feeling the powerful thud of his heart beneath my palm, a rhythm that echoed my own frantic pulse. You said you were too selfish to let me go, so don't make me strong enough to survive this. He stared at me for 10 seconds that felt like an eternity, his eyes searching mine, weighing the risks, the consequences, the potential for utter devastation. Then he pulled me into a kiss that tasted like desperation and surrender, a desperate plea for hope in a world consumed by darkness. You'll follow every order Luca gives, he murmured against my lips, his voice rough with emotion. No arguments, no exceptions. Agreed. And you'll carry a weapon at all times. Even here. Fine. And if I say run, if it comes to that, you run. Promise me, Arya. I looked into his eyes, saw the raw fear lurking beneath the surface, the terror of losing someone he cared for. And I lied. I promise. The training intensified, every moment focused on survival. Luca taught me to shoot until my aim improved from pathetic to passable, showed me pressure points and how to break a hold, explained that survival meant thinking 3 steps ahead, always knowing the exits, trusting no one except Dante and himself. What about Elena? I asked during a water break, the Glock feeling heavy and unnatural in my hand. What about her? Can I trust her? Luca's expression went carefully neutral, his eyes giving nothing away. Elena's been with Dante for 12 years. She's loyal. That's not what I asked. She's loyal to Dante, not to you. He handed me a knife, balanced and deadly, the steel gleaming in the harsh light. Learn the difference. 2 days later, a package arrived, a harbinger of doom wrapped in deceptively innocuous wrapping. Elena brought it to the breakfast table where I sat with Dante, reviewing security reports, the numbers and statistics blurring before my eyes. Plain brown box, no return address, she said, her voice flat and professional. It's been scanned. No explosives or bio threats. Dante opened it carefully, his movements precise and controlled. Inside was a white silk scarf, luxurious and delicate, and a photograph. I recognized the woman immediately. Early 30s, dark hair, a beautiful smile that radiated warmth and joy. She was laughing in the photo, sitting at a cafe somewhere sunny, the light catching the sparkle in her eyes. Dante went absolutely still, his face draining of color. Who is she? I asked quietly, my voice barely audible. His voice was hollow, the word heavy with loss. Her name was Isabel. He didn't need to say more. The blood turned cold in my veins, a chilling premonition of what was to come. Marco's first message. This is how it began with her, too. What happened? 3 years ago, Marco targeted her to get to me. I kept her safe for 6 months. Private security, relocated her twice. Then, one night, she went to visit her sister against my orders. He set down the photo with shaking hands, his eyes haunted by the ghosts of the past. Marco's men were waiting. They made sure I got the video. Dante, she was innocent. Had nothing to do with my business. Just a woman who made the mistake of catching my attention at a gallery opening. He looked at me then, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. A glimpse into the abyss that threatened to consume him. I swore I'd never let that happen again. He whispered, his voice thick with self-reproach, that I'd never give Marco or anyone else leverage over me. And then I came along. And then you came along. His hand found mine across the table, his grip tight and desperate, which is why I need you to understand. Marco won't stop with threats. This scarf is from a boutique in Paris. Isabel bought one there 2 days before she died. It's a countdown. How long did she have? 5 days after he sent the gift. The words hung heavy in the breakfast room sunshine. A death sentence whispered in the light of day. We have 3 days. Elena said quietly, her face grim. That night I couldn't sleep. I wandered the mansion's halls, a ghost in my own life, trailing fingers along expensive walls, wondering if I'd live long enough to leave them. I found Dante in the library, a room I'd barely explored, a sanctuary of floor-to-ceiling books, leather chairs, and a fireplace crackling softly in the hearth. He sat in the darkness, a tumbler of whiskey in hand, staring at nothing, his silhouette a study in grief and isolation. "Tell me about her," I said, sitting in the chair across from him, my voice barely a whisper. "About Isabel? Why?" "Because she's part of this, part of you, and I need to understand." He drank, considered, finally spoke, the words hesitant and painful. "She was an art curator, kind, patient with my darkness. She saw me at a charity auction and somehow decided I was worth knowing." A bitter smile twisted his lips. "She thought she could save me, reform the monster into something better. And you let her try." "I let myself believe it was possible." He refilled his glass, the amber liquid swirling in the light. "For 6 months, I pretended I could be someone else. Someone who went to galleries and read poetry and didn't have blood on his hands. She knew what I was. I never lied about that. But she thought love could change fundamentals. Couldn't. No, because my world found her, consumed her, left me with nothing but guilt and the knowledge that caring is a fatal flaw." He looked at me then, his eyes reflecting the firelight, and the pain in them was almost unbearable. "So why do I keep making the same mistake?" "Because you're human. I'm a killer, Arya. You're both." I moved to kneel in front of his chair, taking his hands in mine, the leather of his gloves rough against my skin. "You can be both. Not without destroying you. Then we'll be destroyed together." I kissed his knuckles, scarred and warm, a silent vow. 3 days. If Marco's following the same pattern, we have 3 days to change the ending. There's no changing it. Just different ways to die or different ways to fight. I met his eyes, my voice firm and unwavering. "Isabel tried to save you. I'm not that naive, but I'll fight beside you. That has to count for something." For the first time since the package arrived, something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe, or determination. A flicker of something akin to light in the overwhelming darkness. "You're insane," he murmured, his voice a husky whisper. "Probably. And you're gonna get yourself killed. Possibly. And I'm completely in love with you." The confession stole my breath, a sudden rush of air leaving me lightheaded. "Dante, I love you," he repeated, his voice raw with emotion, as if the words were costing him everything. "I've loved you since you stood in that restaurant and refused to be invisible. And it terrifies me more than Marco ever could." "Why?" "Because love is the only thing that can truly destroy me." He pulled me into his lap, holding me tight, his arms a protective cage around me, as if I might vanish into thin air. "And you, Arya, are the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to me." I kissed him then, slow, deep, certain. A promise of unwavering loyalty in the face of impending doom. "Then let's be dangerous together." We made love in front of the fireplace, tangled in blankets and desperation and defiance. Our bodies a temporary shield against the horrors that awaited us. When we finally fell asleep wrapped around each other, I dreamed of silk scarves and counting down days, a macabre countdown to destruction. I woke to the sound of gunfire echoing through the mansion, the sharp, brutal cracks shattering the fragile peace of the night. The first shot shattered a window in the east wing, sending shards of glass raining down onto the manicured lawn. I was reaching for my clothes when Dante was already moving. A predator unleashed, gun in hand, phone to his ear, barking orders in rapid Italian, his voice a low, dangerous growl. "Stay here," he commanded, pulling on pants and a shirt, his movements swift and efficient. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Luca." "What's happening?" "Marco's making his move early." Another shot echoed closer this time, the sound vibrating through the floorboards. "He's not waiting for day 5. My blood went cold, fear a sharp, visceral jolt. "How many?" "Don't know yet." He kissed me hard and fast, a desperate promise. "Promise me you'll stay hidden, Dante. Promise me." I promise. He left before I could change my mind, disappearing into the maelstrom of violence. I locked the door and grabbed the Glock Luca had given me for practice, the cold steel a small comfort in the face of overwhelming terror. My hands shook as I checked the magazine, the bullets gleaming dully in the dim light. Safety off. Through the thick door, I could hear chaos unfolding. Shouting in Italian, running footsteps, the sharp crack of gunfire, a cacophony of violence that echoed through the mansion like a death knell. Someone screamed, a high-pitched, terrified sound that cut through the din. Something heavy crashed, the sound of breaking furniture and shattering glass. I pressed against the wall by the door, gun raised, trying to remember everything Luca had taught me, every detail ingrained in my mind through hours of relentless training. Breathe. Squeeze. Don't pull. 5 minutes passed, each second stretching into an eternity. 10 minutes, the silence punctuated by bursts of gunfire and the distant sounds of struggle. The sounds of fighting moved through the mansion like a storm, engulfing everything in its path. Intense bursts of violence followed by eerie silence, a terrifying lull before the next wave of destruction. Then, footsteps in the hallway, coming closer and closer. Right outside the door, the sound sending a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. I tightened my grip on the gun, my finger hovering over the trigger. Are ya? Luca's voice, strained and ragged, barely audible above the chaos. Open the door now. How do I know it's really you? Because I'm bleeding out, Piccolola. And if you don't let me in, Marco's men will finish the job. I unlocked the door, my hand trembling, and Luca stumbled inside, collapsing against the wall, his left arm soaked in blood, his face pale and drawn. I helped him to the chair, my hands already reaching for something to staunch the bleeding, my mind racing with the need to help, to do something, anything. How bad? I asked, tearing strips from a sheet, my voice tight with fear. Bullet went through. He winced as I wrapped the makeshift bandage around his arm. I'll live. Can't say the same for the bastard who shot me. Where's Dante? Hunting. Marco sent 12 men, professionals. They breached the perimeter and made it inside before we knew what was happening. He grimaced as I tightened the makeshift bandage, his face contorted in pain. Elena's dead. 2 guards down in the south corridor. Dante's handling the rest. My stomach lurched, bile rising in my throat. Elena took 2 bullets protecting the weapons vault. Died fighting. Luca's expression was grim, his eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and respect. She might not have liked you, but she died for this house. Remember that. Guilt and grief crashed over me, a wave of emotion threatening to overwhelm me. But there was no time to process, no time for tears or recriminations. What do? I asked, my voice desperate. Exactly what Dante said. Stay hidden. Let us. The door exploded inward, the wood splintering and shattering under the force of the blast. Not from the handle, not from the hinges, but from a point of impact designed to cause maximum damage. Someone had planted a charge, a deliberate act of brutality meant to intimidate and destroy. Luca shoved me behind him, his body a shield against the unknown. As 2 men in tactical gear entered the room, their faces hidden behind masks, weapons raised, their eyes cold and devoid of emotion. There's the prize, one said in Italian, his voice a low growl. Marco sends his regards. Luca fired twice, his movements swift and practiced despite his injuries. 1 man went down, a surprised look on his face, collapsing in a heap on the floor. The other returned fire, the bullets ripping through the air, and Luca took another hit, this time in the leg. He collapsed with a grunt of pain, his face contorted in agony. The remaining attacker turned his gun on me, his eyes locking onto mine, a predatory gleam in their depths. Time slowed, the world shrinking to a pinpoint of fear. I saw his finger tighten on the trigger, felt the cold breath of death on my skin. Saw Luca trying to raise his weapon, his face a mask of pain and determination. Saw my own demise reflected in the man's cold, merciless eyes. Then, training took over, instinct overriding fear, the months of preparation kicking in with a force that surprised even me. I didn't think, Didn't hesitate, didn't allow myself to be consumed by terror. Just moved, reacting with a speed and precision I didn't know I possessed. Raised my gun, my hands surprisingly steady, the Glock feeling like an extension of my own body. Aimed center mass just like Luca taught me, focusing on the target, blocking out everything else. Squeezed the trigger, the recoil shocking through my arms, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The man staggered, surprise blooming on his face, a fleeting moment of disbelief before he crumpled to the floor, his weapon clattering uselessly beside him. I stood frozen, gun still raised, my hands shaking uncontrollably, staring at what I'd done, the reality of my actions hitting me with the force of a physical blow. I had killed someone, taken a life, become a killer myself. Arya, Luca's voice, strained but urgent, pulled me back from the abyss. His words a lifeline in the storm of my emotions. We need to move. More are coming. We made it to a panic room hidden behind the library's bookshelf. A secret chamber reinforced with steel, equipped with communication systems, weapons, and a stash of cash. A last refuge in a world gone mad. I helped Luca inside, his blood leaving a trail on the marble floors, the stark red staining the pristine white. You did good, he said, breathing hard, his face pale with blood loss. First kill is always the hardest. I just murdered someone. You survived. There's a difference. He handed me his phone, his hand trembling slightly. Call Dante. Code 77. Tell him we're secure. My hand shook as I dialed, my fingers fumbling with the buttons, the weight of the situation pressing down on me with crushing force. Dante answered on the first ring, his voice sharp and demanding. Status. It's Arya. Luca's hurt. We're in the panic room. My voice cracked, the words barely a whisper, overwhelmed by the horror of the past few minutes. I shot someone. Silence. A pregnant pause that stretched on for an eternity, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing. Are you hurt? No. Is Luca stable? I think so. Then you did everything right. His voice softened slightly, a hint of pride lacing his words. I'm coming to you. 10 minutes. Stay locked down, Dante. I know. I've handled 8 of them. For left. This ends tonight. The line went dead, leaving me alone in the silence of the panic room, the weight of my actions pressing down on me with suffocating force. 9 minutes later, the panic room's communication system crackled to life, the sound startling me from my reverie. Arya. Dante's voice, distorted but unmistakable, filled the small space. Open the door. It's clear. I checked the security monitor, my hand still gripping the gun, fear warring with relief. Dante stood alone in the library, his face grim, his clothes torn and covered in blood that didn't look like his own. He looked like a warrior who had emerged victorious from a brutal battle, but his eyes held a sadness that belied his triumph. I opened the door, the heavy steel swinging inward with a groaning sigh. He crossed to me immediately, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching for injuries, his touch gentle despite the violence that clung to him. You sure you're all right? I'm fine. Luca needs... I already called medical. They're 2 minutes out. His thumb brushed my cheek, a tender gesture in the midst of chaos. You killed one of them. I didn't have a choice. I know. He kissed my forehead, a fleeting moment of connection. You saved Luca's life. That's all that matters. Elena's dead. I know. Pain flickered across his face, a brief glimpse of the grief that threatened to consume him. She died protecting this house, protecting you in her way. How many did Marco send? 12. All dead now. His expression went cold, lethal, his eyes hardening with a resolve that chilled me to the bone. He wanted to make a statement. Instead, he gave me justification. For what? For war. He released me, pulling out his phone, his movements swift and decisive. I tried to handle this quietly, keep the violence contained. But Marco crossed the line tonight. Now he gets what he's been asking for. Dante, no. No more safe houses. No more hiding. His eyes met mine, dark with promise and fury, a vow etched in the depths of his soul. Tomorrow we take the fight to him. We end this before he takes anyone else I love. The words hung in the blood-scented air, heavy with unspoken promises. A declaration of war whispered in the aftermath of violence. Behind us, Luca groaned, his voice strained but laced with a hint of dark humor. About damn time. The medical team arrived, Dante's private doctors, discreet and efficient. No hospitals, no questions asked, just the unwavering loyalty that came with a life lived in the shadows. They stabilized Luca, treating his wounds with practiced skill, and tended to the minor injuries sustained by 2 other guards who'd survived the onslaught. At dawn, I stood on Dante's balcony, watching the sunrise paint the city gold, the light a stark contrast to the darkness that had consumed the night. He found me there, freshly showered, his hair still damp, looking almost human except for the haunted edge in his eyes, the weight of the world etched on his face. "You should rest," he said, his voice soft. "So should you. Can't. Too much to do." He handed me a coffee, the warmth of the cup a welcome comfort in my trembling hands. Standing beside me, his presence a silent reassurance. Marco made his play. Now it's my turn. What are you going to do? Something I should have done 3 years ago. His jaw tightened, the muscles bunching beneath his skin. I'm going to kill him myself. That's not a solution. That's revenge. Sometimes, he said softly, his eyes fixed on the horizon. They're the same thing. We stood in silence, watching the city wake up, the world oblivious to the violence that had unfolded in the shadows. Both of us marked by the night, forever changed by the blood we had spilled, the lives we had taken. Both of us knowing that the horror was only the beginning, that the real war was yet to come. "I'm coming with you," I said finally, my voice firm and unwavering, the decision already made. "Absolutely not. You said no more hiding, that I'm part of this now." I turned to face him, my eyes meeting his, unwavering and resolute. "So let me be part of it. All of it. Arya. I killed a man last night to protect someone you care about. I earned my place in this fight." He studied me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine, assessing my strength, my resolve, the darkness that now lurked beneath the surface. A war-torn heroine standing in his borrowed clothes, the scent of gunpowder still clinging to her hands, steel in her eyes, a silent promise of unwavering loyalty. Then he smiled, a rare and precious expression that lit up his face, chasing away the shadows, a dark and proud acknowledgement of the woman I had become. "You're going to be the death of me," he murmured, his voice husky with emotion, "or my salvation." I took his hand, the leather of his gloves rough against my skin, my touch a silent vow. "Either way, we're in this." I backed away towards the front door, needing him to believe I was reckless, utterly desperate. A predatory smile stretched across his face as he said, "And when his men fill you with bullets, they won't." Because I was bringing him something he craved more than my demise. Every gaze in the room locked onto me. "No," I said immediately, shaking my head. "Absolutely not." Dante's voice was smooth, falsely reassuring. "You'll never actually be in danger, Arya. You'll be wired, armed to the teeth, and surrounded by my men. The moment Marco reveals his hand, we move. It's a calculated risk. This was using me as bait. This was preying on his obsession." Dante's eyes found mine across the polished mahogany table. "He thinks you're my weakness. Let's prove him right, then make him regret it with every breath he takes. And if something goes wrong..." My voice trailed off, the unspoken fear hanging heavy in the air. "Nothing will go wrong." But the muscle ticking nervously in his jaw betrayed his words, revealing his own doubts. After the briefing, Luca pulled me aside, his expression grave. "You don't have to do this, Piccola," he said quietly, his eyes filled with concern. "Dante would never force you." "I know." I checked the compact pistol they'd provided, small enough to be concealed in a thigh holster. Cold steel against my skin, a stark reminder of the night ahead. "But if I don't, Marco will keep coming. More attacks, more deaths. This ends one way or another tonight." Luca's gaze hardened with a mixture of pride and worry. You've got steel in you, Piccola. More than you know. Dante chose well, he said almost to himself. He didn't choose. I corrected him. I did. A ghost of a smile touched Luca's lips. Even better. We departed at midnight. 3 black cars, an armed convoy, slicing through the city's underbelly, heading into the dark heart where Marco's power reigned supreme. I rode with Dante, pressed close to him in the back seat, feeling the frantic rhythm of his heart pounding beneath my palm. If anything happens, he began, his voice low and strained. Nothing will happen, I interrupted, trying to inject confidence into my voice. But if it does, I need you to know. He took my hand, pressed something cold and metallic into my palm. A key. A safe deposit box. Bank of Milan. Everything you'd need to disappear. New identity, money, contacts, everything to start over. Dante, if I die tonight. He cut me off, his voice rough with barely contained emotion. You run. You take that key and you vanish. Live the life I couldn't give you. I'm not leaving you. You might not have a choice. He kissed me then. A deep and desperate kiss that tasted of fear and longing. Promise me, Arya. If it comes to that. If it comes to that. I interrupted, my voice unwavering. We die together. Deal? He laughed. A sound both broken and beautiful. You're insane. I learned from the best. Club Note was a gaudy monument to sin. All red velvet, gleaming black marble, pulsing music, and beautiful people lost in their own worlds. The kind of place where dark deals were struck in shadowy corners and no one dared ask questions. Dante walked in like he owned the damn place, radiating power and authority. Me on his arm in a dress that probably cost more than my former car. His men fanned out, invisible but present, weapons concealed beneath tailored suits, ready to unleash hell if necessary. A hostess, dripping in diamonds and fake smiles, tried to stop us. Dante silenced her with a black card embossed with gold. Tell Marco that Dante Vieri is here to negotiate, and I've brought his prize. 5 minutes later, we were escorted to a private elevator, the doors sliding shut with a soft hiss. Last chance to run, Dante murmured, his eyes searching mine as the elevator ascended. Not a chance in hell, I replied, my voice firm. The elevator doors opened onto a floor I hadn't seen on any of the blueprints. The space had been converted into a lavish apartment, a testament to modern luxury and dangerous elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the sprawling city below, a glittering tapestry of lights and shadows. Original artwork worth millions adorned the walls, silent witnesses to the drama about to unfold. And in the center of the room, standing casually by a sleek, minimalist bar, was Marco Calibra. He was younger than I had anticipated, maybe 40, handsome in a sharp, cruel way. Expensive suit, perfectly coiffed hair, and cold, calculating eyes that assessed me like a piece of merchandise. Dante. Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. You've been busy, haven't you? Killing my men, refusing my generous offers, making a mess of our beautiful city. You attacked my home, murdered my staff, Dante retorted, his voice like chipped ice. I'm here to end this, Dante continued, his gaze unwavering, by offering you your blank. Marco gestured toward me with his crystal glass, swirling the amber liquid inside. How democratic of you. Dante's hand tightened imperceptibly on my waist, a silent warning, but his expression remained impassive. I'm offering you a trade, Arya, for a truce. You walk away from this war. I keep my territory. No more bloodshed. And if I refuse? Marco asked, his voice dangerously soft. Then you die tonight, Dante said simply. Marco threw back his head and laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed in the opulent space. Certainly, Dante. You came into my club, surrounded by my men, and you threatened me? Dante, love has made you stupid. Love has given me something to fight for. Dante's eyes were dark, lethal, burning with a fierce protectiveness that sent a shiver down my spine, which makes me more dangerous than you've ever been. Prove it. What happened next unfolded in a blur of controlled chaos. Dante moved first, his gun appearing from seemingly nowhere, firing 2 precise shots. Marco's bodyguards crumpled to the floor, lifeless. Simultaneously, the windows exploded inward as Dante's men rappelled from the roof, shattering glass raining down like deadly confetti. I dove for cover behind a marble column as gunfire erupted. The room instantly transformed into a war zone. Through the chaos, I saw Dante and Marco collide, a brutal clash of titans. Guns were discarded as the fight devolved into raw, animalistic combat. Fists flew, furniture shattered, and 15 years of simmering hatred erupted in a maelstrom of violence. I pulled my weapon, desperately searching for a clear shot, but they moved too fast, a whirlwind of muscle and rage. Locked together, they smashed through a glass coffee table, each blow delivered with deadly intent. Then Marco gained the upper hand. His elbow connected with Dante's jaw, sending him staggering backward. A glint of steel flashed in Marco's hand as a knife appeared. "You should have taken my offer," Marco snarled, his face contorted with malice. "Now I'll take everything, starting with her." He turned toward me, his eyes burning with predatory hunger. Without hesitation, I raised my gun, aimed and fired. The bullet caught Marco in the shoulder, spinning him around like a broken doll. Dante was on him in an instant, his hands closing around Marco's throat. "You threatened her," Dante growled, his voice a low, guttural snarl. "You came into my home. You killed Elena. You made this personal." "Dante, stop." Luca appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, an assault rifle clutched in his hands. "We need him alive. Information. The rest of his organization." For 5 agonizing seconds, Dante didn't move. He simply held Marco by the throat, his knuckles white with the force of his grip, deciding whether to kill or spare. Then, with a visible effort, he released him, letting Marco collapse to the floor, gasping for air. "Take him," Dante ordered his men, his voice devoid of emotion. "Interrogate him. Find out everyone involved." Then he looked down at Marco, his eyes filled with absolute contempt. "Then we're done being merciful." The drive back to the mansion was silent. The only sound the low hum of the engine and the frantic beat of my own heart. Dante's knuckles were split and bleeding, a smear of blood on his crisp white collar, but he was alive. "Here. It's over?" I whispered, reaching for his hand. "It's never over," he replied, his voice flat, but his fingers tightened around mine, a silent reassurance. "But we won this round. We—" He turned to me, a flicker of something fierce and proud in his expression. "You shot him, saved my life. You fought beside me, became part of my world, proved you're stronger than either of us knew." I was terrified. So was I. He pulled me into his lap, holding me close. "Every second you were in danger, I was terrified. But you survived. We survived. What happens now?" "Now?" He kissed my forehead, his voice softer now. "Now we deal with the aftermath. Marco's organization, the power vacuum, the people who tried to take advantage of his fall." "That sounds exhausting." "It is." He smiled slightly, a genuine, weary smile. "But we'll do it together." "Together?" I agreed, leaning into his embrace. We arrived home as dawn broke, blood-stained, exhausted, but alive. And for the first time since this began, I dared to believe we might actually survive his world. Marco broke after 3 days of relentless interrogation. I wasn't present for it. Dante wouldn't allow it. But I saw the results. Names, bank accounts, safe houses, the entire network of Marco's operations laid bare, exposed like a dissected frog. 23 people involved in the attack on our home. Dante told me over breakfast on day 4, his face grim. 12 dead. Marco in custody. The others. His expression darkened, a storm brewing in his eyes. "They'll answer for what they've done." "And Marco?" I asked hesitantly. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice flat. He didn't elaborate and I didn't ask. Some things were better left unknown. buried in the darkness where they belonged. That night, Dante found me in the garden, the sanctuary that had become my refuge in his dangerous world. "Can't sleep?" he asked, sitting beside me on the cold stone bench. "Too much in my head. Want to talk about it?" "I killed someone." The words came out flat, devoid of emotion. "Shot a man in your club. Watched you nearly die. Survived a war I didn't start." I looked at him, searching for answers. "How do you process that?" "You don't." "Not really." His hand found mine, his touch warm and grounding in the cool night air. "You carry it. Let it change you. Hope you come out the other side still recognizable." "Are you still recognizable?" "I don't know anymore." He was quiet for a long moment, the silence broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of the city. "The man I was before you would have killed Marco without hesitation. No interrogation, no mercy, just elimination." "What changed?" I asked softly. "You did." He turned to face me fully, his eyes filled with a raw vulnerability that I rarely saw. "You made me want something beyond survival, beyond power. You made me want a future instead of just vengeance. Is that possible in your world?" "I'm going to find out." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, his movements deliberate, which made me realize what was coming. My heart stopped, and hope and fear intertwined in my chest. He opened the box to reveal a ring, platinum band, simple and elegant. A single diamond sparkled in the moonlight, understated and breathtaking. "Arya Key," he said, his voice rough with barely contained emotion. "I'm a killer, criminal, a man whose hands are stained with blood and choices I can't take back. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. But I can promise you this. I will love you with everything I have. I will protect you with everything I am. And I will spend every day trying to be worthy of what you've given me." Tears blurred my vision, making the diamond shimmer. "Is this a proposal?" "This is me asking you to stay forever, to be my wife, my partner, the one person in this world I trust with my darkness and my light." He took my hand, his touch gentle despite the strength beneath. "Marry me, Arya. Choose this life. Choose me." I should have said no. Should have run from this dangerous man and his violent world, from a future that promised nothing but complications. Instead, I said yes. He kissed me like I was oxygen, like I was salvation, like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity. We made love in the garden, under the watchful eyes of the stars and the ever-present security lights. Slow, reverent, the antithesis of the violence that had defined our last weeks. This was healing, connection, promise. "I love you," he whispered against my skin, his voice thick with emotion. "God help us both. I love you too." I traced the scars on his back, each one a testament to his past. Some old, some new, all of them a part of who he was. "All of you, even the parts you think are unforgivable. You'll regret this," he murmured, his voice tinged with doubt. "Probably." I smiled through my tears. "But I'd rather regret loving you than regret running away." The next morning, Dante was gone before dawn, leaving a note on his pillow. "Ending things with Marco. Don't wait up. D." I spent the day in restless anxiety, trying not to imagine what ending things meant in his world. Luca found me pacing in the study around noon, my nerves stretched to the breaking point. "He'll be fine," Luca said, his voice reassuring. "Dante's been doing this longer than you've been alive. That doesn't make it any easier." "No, it doesn't." He studied me for a moment, his expression softening. "You really going to marry him?" "Yes." "Even knowing what that means? Being his wife, the target that puts on your back?" "I'd rather be his wife and in danger than safe and without him." Luca smiled slightly, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "You really are crazy, Piccola, but you're exactly what he needs." Dante returned at dusk, looking exhausted but calm. "It's done," he said simply, his voice devoid of emotion. "Marco will never threaten anyone again. His organization is dismantled. His allies have scattered. The war is over, Arya. We won." He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight, and I felt the tension drain from his body as if a dam had broken. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice muffled against his chest. "Now?" He kissed the top of my head. "Now we rebuild. I have businesses to legitimize, enemies to convert into allies, a reputation to reshape." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes filled with a tender vulnerability. "And a wedding to plan." "When?" "Soon." His smile was soft, almost shy. "Before you change your mind." "I won't." "Promise?" "Promise." 2 weeks later, we married in a private ceremony. Just Luca, a judge Dante trusted, and a handful of people from his inner circle who'd proven their loyalty. I wore white, a simple, elegant gown that felt both traditional and utterly out of place in his world. He wore black, a perfectly tailored suit that emphasized his dark intensity. "I, Dante Vieri," he said, his voice steady and unwavering, "take you, Arya Key, to be my wife, my partner, my conscience in the darkness. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you until my last breath." "I, Arya Key," I replied, tears streaming down my face. "Take you, Dante Vieri, to be my husband, my shelter in the storm, my proof that love can exist even in darkness. I promise to stand beside you, challenge you, and love you through everything." The judge pronounced us married, his voice echoing in the small, intimate chapel. Dante kissed me then, a kiss that was both tender and possessive, like he'd been waiting his entire life for this moment. And maybe he had. That night, in the bedroom that had become ours, he undressed me slowly, reverently, almost worshipfully. "My wife," he murmured against my skin, his voice husky with emotion. "Mine to protect, mine to love." "Mine," I agreed, pulling him closer. "Mine, yours," he echoed. "Always yours." We made love with the certainty of vows spoken and promises kept. Slow, deep, consuming, every touch a declaration, every kiss a commitment. Afterward, wrapped in sheets in each other's arms, he held me close, his body relaxed and sated. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with a profound gratitude. "For what? For not running? For staying when any sane person would have fled? For seeing something worth loving in a monster? You're not a monster. I'm not a hero either." "No." I kissed his jaw, tracing the rough stubble with my fingertips. "You're just a man. Complicated, dangerous. But mine." "Yours," he agreed, his voice soft. "For whatever that's worth." "Everything," I said, meeting his gaze with unwavering intensity. "It's worth everything." We fell asleep, tangled together, hearts synchronized, his ring heavy on my finger. And for the first time since meeting Dante Vieri in that restaurant months ago, I felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, it never would be, but because we'd face it together. Husband and wife, partners in darkness and light, bound by shadows and sealed by love. 3 months later, I woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and Dante's arm draped possessively across my waist. "Good morning, Mrs. Vieri," he murmured, his voice still rough with sleep. "Good morning, Mr. Vieri." He kissed my shoulder, my neck, pulling me closer. "Have I mentioned how much I love hearing you called that?" "Only about 1,000 times. Make it 1,001. He rolled me beneath him, settling between my thighs with familiar heat. "I love that you're mine, that everyone knows it, that you chose this life." "I chose you," I corrected him, smiling. "The life came with the package." "Any regrets?" I pretended to consider the occasional gunfight, the constant security, the fact that I could never again eat at a restaurant without meticulously checking the exits. "Worth it?" I said, pulling him down for a kiss. "All of it worth it for this." Life as Mrs. Dante Vieri was nothing like I'd imagined. Yes, there were dangers, threats from rivals, constant security. Nights when Dante came home with blood on his hands and shadows in his eyes. But there was also a beauty I hadn't expected, a depth of connection and love that transcended the violence and darkness. Dante kept his promise to legitimize his businesses. Half his empire was now legal. Restaurants, real estate, import companies that actually imported legal goods. He donated to charities, attended benefits, slowly and carefully building a reputation as a businessman rather than just a criminal. "I'm trying," he told me one night after particularly brutal negotiations with city officials. "To be someone you can be proud of. I'm already proud of you. Even knowing what I've done, especially knowing what you've done and what you're trying to become." I took his face in my hands, my heart overflowing with love and admiration. "You're proof that people can change, Dante. That love can transform or corrupt. Both, maybe." I kissed him softly, "But I'll take complicated and real over simple and false any day." Luca became our constant companion, head of security officially, honorary family member in truth. "You two are disgustingly happy," he commented one morning, finding us tangled together on the terrace, basking in the morning sun. "Jealous?" Dante smirked, his arm tightening around me. Luca rolled his eyes, terrified. "Happy Dante is unsettling. Where's the cold, ruthless boss I used to know?" "He's right here," Dante assured him, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Just softer around the edges. Soft gets you killed. Being human keeps me alive." Dante's arm tightened around me, his gaze unwavering. "Turns out having something to lose makes you fight harder, not weaker." We took our first real vacation that summer. A villa in Tuscany, just us and minimal security. "This is nice," I said, lying in the sun by the pool, feeling the warmth on my skin and the gentle breeze in my hair. "Normal. We're never going to be normal, are ya?" "I know, but we can pretend for a week." He laughed, pulling me into the cool water with him. A week of pretending, then back to reality. Deal? Deal. We spent 7 glorious days being just Dante and Arya. Not boss and wife, not criminal and accomplice. Just two people who'd found each other against impossible odds. We made love under Italian stars, explored ancient villages where no one knew his name, ate meals without checking for poison or weapons. For one blissful week we were free, but reality came roaring back the moment we returned. A new threat emerged, not from Marco's scattered organization, but from within Dante's own ranks. Someone was embezzling, selling information, threatening the fragile peace we'd built. "Who?" I asked when Dante briefed his inner circle, his face a mask of fury. "Still investigating," Luca replied, his jaw tight. "But when I find them," Dante's voice dropped to a dangerous growl, "they'll wish Marco's fate was theirs instead." It took 2 weeks to uncover the traitor. When they did, I understood why Dante looked so betrayed. It was Matteo Rossi, his oldest associate, the man who'd questioned my presence from the beginning, the man Dante considered a brother. He couldn't accept the changes, Luca explained while Dante dealt with the situation in ways I didn't want to know. Thought Dante had gone soft. Decided to take advantage. "What will happen to him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Luca's expression was grim. "Nothing pleasant. Betrayal from within is the worst kind." Dante came home 3 hours later, blood on his shirt, exhaustion carved into his face. I met him at the door, taking his hand without questions. "Bath," I offered softly. He nodded, his eyes empty. I ran the water, helped him undress, washed the blood from his hands while he stared at nothing, lost in his own private hell. "Matteo's dead," he said finally, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "I know," I replied, gently touching his cheek. "I killed him myself." He met my gaze, his eyes filled with pain and self-loathing. "No delegation, no mercy." "I know. You should be horrified," he whispered, his voice raw with despair. "I am." I knelt in front of him, meeting his tortured gaze. "But I also know he betrayed you, put us all in danger, would have killed me if it served his purposes. That doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it necessary." I kissed his scarred knuckles, my heart breaking for the man he was and the choices he had to make. "You're still the man I married, still the man I love. This darkness, it's part of you. I knew that when I said yes." "You signed up for a lot, Mrs. Vieri," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I signed up for everything, Mr. Vieri. The good, the bad, and the bloody. He pulled me into the bath with him, holding me close like I might disappear if he let go. I don't deserve you, he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. Probably not, I agreed, snuggling against his chest. But you're stuck with me anyway. 6 months after our wedding, I found out I was pregnant. I told Dante over breakfast, my heart pounding with joy and terror in equal measure. He went absolutely still, his eyes widening with a mixture of shock and disbelief. You're sure? 3 tests, all positive. We're having a baby. My voice cracked on the last word, and tears welled up in my eyes. We're having a baby, Dante. He stood so fast his chair fell backward, crashing to the floor. He crossed to me, dropped to his knees beside my chair, his hands trembling as he reached for mine. Arya. His hands trembled as he touched my still flat stomach. We're bringing a child into this world. My world. Fear flickered in his eyes, but I saw something else there too. A raw, untamed joy that resonated deep within my soul. The danger will be managed, protected against, loved through. He promised, his voice thick with emotion. I covered his hands with mine, my own trembling with a mixture of fear and excitement. This baby will be the safest, most loved child in existence because they'll have you as a father. I don't know how to be a father, he confessed, his voice laced with doubt. I barely know how to be human. Then we'll learn together, I said, lifting his face and meeting his gaze. This is scary, complicated, dangerous, just like everything else we've survived. Together, he said, his voice filled with a newfound hope. Together, I affirmed. He kissed my stomach reverently, his touch gentle and awed, then stood and pulled me into his arms. I love you, he said fiercely, his voice rough with emotion. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, darkness and all. 9 months later, Elena Rossi Vieri entered the world, named for the woman who died protecting our home. She was perfect. Tiny fists, dark eyes, and lungs that could wake the entire mansion. Dante held her like she was made of glass, his face awash with emotion. Tears streamed down his cheeks, unchecked and unashamed. Hello, Piccola, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I'm your papa, and I promise I will protect you with everything I am. I will try to be worthy of you, and I will love you more than life itself. Elena yawned and went back to sleep, completely unimpressed by her father's criminal empire or his dramatic declarations. I laughed through my own tears, my heart overflowing with love. She's going to have you wrapped around her little finger. She already does. He looked at me, his entire world reflected in his eyes. Wife and daughter, love and redemption. You both do, he whispered, his voice filled with a tenderness I never thought possible. Epilogue. 5 years later, I watch from the terrace as Dante teaches Elena to ride her bike. Patient, protective, every inch the devoted father no one would have predicted. Lucas sits beside me, nursing an espresso, his gaze soft as he watches the scene unfold. Who would have thought that the ruthless Mafia boss would be defeated by a 5-year-old? Or that any of this would work? I added, gesturing at our life, the legitimate businesses, the mostly legal operations, the family we'd built. Against all odds, you reformed the unreformable, Lucas said, shaking his head in disbelief. I didn't reform him, I corrected him. I just loved him. Lucas smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. Same thing, Piccola. Maybe he's right. Maybe love was the key all along. Dante catches my eye across the lawn and smiles. A genuine, warm smile that reaches his eyes. The expression of a man who found salvation in the most unlikely place. In me, in us, in a love that survived darkness and chose light. Is our life perfect? No. Are there still dangers, complications, moments when his past rises up to threaten our future? Yes. But when Elena squeals with delight and Dante catches her when she falls, when we curl up together at night and he holds us like we're his entire world, When I see the man he's becoming instead of the man he was, I know we made the right choice. Both of us. To stay, to fight, to love. Against every odd, despite every danger, through every shadow, we chose each other. And that, more than anything, is enough.